Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 3 of the Tommy Joyner Radio Show. Super pumped to introduce my next guest, someone that was actually a former customer of mine with Content Pros in my last business while he was working in his last business and has since moved on. My man Andrew Peluso coming at us live from Bali, Indonesia at the moment. Andrew runs Bananas Marketing Agency, has a lot of relevant experience for the people that listen to this show. So I think the audience is going to get a lot of value out of our conversation today. So Andrew, welcome, man.
Thanks, Tommy. Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Awesome, man. So I generally like to start these interviews. We're going to jump into some stuff that I think is like really actionable and practical for our audience. And I know you have a lot of knowledge that I'm excited to pull from. But if you could just give the audience a quick update on who you are, a little bit of your background, and exactly what you're doing, what your business does now, that would be an awesome place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started building websites, WordPress. I actually started building websites using Photoshop, send them to developers, get them built that way. And long story short, like many people who ended up in marketing, once you build a website, you kind of figure out it doesn't do you a whole lot of good unless you're driving traffic to it. So I ended up getting into marketing, really was attracted to SEO. A buddy of mine was doing web design and much more talented than I was, and said, "Hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to get leads. Can you help me?" I said, "Sure." So we set up shop in Sacramento, went 3 years of running Websauce Studio, which just got, so I exited that April 1st, bought my partner out of our marketing clients, and he went the web design direction. They actually just got acquired by a development company in Seattle called White Rabbit, who was a previous partner of ours. And so now I run Bananas Marketing Agency. We only do search engine optimization and search engine marketing. So Google Ads, Bing, Yahoo, all that good stuff. And so it's been a few years of running agency, definitely lots of bruises, black eyes, and lessons learned. So happy to share all about that stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. A lot of our listeners are either running a productized service or running a digital marketing agency that's a little bit more across the board. So all the information that you're going to share is super relevant. I would like to talk specifically about some of the stuff that you've transitioned into with Bananas Marketing Agency and what your current offers look like in terms of the packages that you've put together.
Yeah. So and I love the topic of this podcast because one of the lessons you learn very quickly is that if you want to run a profitable agency, you really have to productize. It's not really an option if you want to actually not just do work and be like a freelancer, but make money and have money to put back into the business. So transitioning from Websauce and niching down specifically to SEO and search engine marketing was a very conscious decision. Nice. One of the reasons being is, that I realized that at Websauce, which was a web design, web development, SEO, SEM, like we did so much without a large team in place and money to invest in people, like some sort of an outside investment to put people in place to get all those pieces together. When it's just a couple of us, which starting out it is incredibly difficult to become an expert in one specific thing. You just end up being a generalist to a large degree. And when you're making promises to clients about being able to execute on all these different things, they're looking at you as just a marketing person, and they have no idea that you could be an expert at any one of those things, or you're maybe not an expert at any of them.
Yeah.
So even though my specialty was SEO, we were offering all these different services, and transitioning to Bananas, I knew immediately that I wanted to put schedule of procedures in place to offer very specific services to my clients. So one of the services I offer that's a package is reputation management. So that's specifically targeting local SEO clients, usually service businesses who operate in a very specific geographical area. And another service we offer is link building, and that is that's not a la carte. So that is a monthly service that we provide where we have like a $1,500 package is where it starts.
Okay.
And usually that's for guest posting. Sometimes we'll do content promotion. And those are the two main things that we focus on. And then the third service that we offer, which is productized, is Google Ads, specifically Google Ads management, setup, all that good stuff. And so those are the three areas that we really focus on, and the majority of our clients are service-based businesses because of that emphasis.
So what is the difference in terms for you now? What's the difference between the experience that you had at Websauce versus the experience that you're having with Bananas Marketing Agency in terms of how you feel about how structured things are? Is it like a bit more streamlined? Do you feel like more focused?
Yeah, 100%. Oh man, as soon as I made the decision to leave Websauce, which was December of last year, it was like, and I loved my experience there, and my business partner and I were friends long before the agency. We'll be friends long after, but it was like the weight of the world just came off my shoulders. And to a large degree, that was because it was so overwhelming not having a very specific focus in place. So as soon as I decided I was just going to do SEO, search engine marketing, we streamlined, we niched down, we started putting together the exact documents and services that I would be providing to my clients and future clients. And it was a big relief when we were able to niche down. And it's scary too, because you hate to say no to people when you're a smaller agency or a new agency. You kind of just take what you can get. But what you don't realize is that in doing that, you end up, slowing down your growth because you spend so much time trying to catch up and being inefficient in your processes that you don't have the time you really need to focus on growing your agency. So that was, it's been a big relief being able to just focus on a few things.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a trap as well that people can get into when they're starting something, is just taking something on because they're going to make money from it, and then having this sort of fear-based mentality associated with maybe not getting someone else on board to be able to pay the bills or whatever. And then you end up getting trapped in this cycle where you're not able to carve out the time that you need to focus on that creative work or that proactive work associated with building the business that ultimately becomes something sort of sustainable. So huge lesson. I think there's a lot of wisdom in what Andrew just said. So definitely take notes on that one. Don't take everything that you get. Have like real clear boundaries associated with like who you want to work with, and stick to that. Because it's sometimes counterintuitive, but like you really have to. Are all your packages right now recurring, or are there some one-off packages that you sell as well?
Yeah, so most of what we do is recurring. We also have a one-off like discovery process package where we'll do like an SEO analysis, or we'll do a Google Ads or PPC analysis where I can run a bunch of numbers and figure out, what's the search volume. So if we're doing SEO, it's what's the search volume, and the really important questions for me to ask the business owner, because we work with small businesses, is what is your average order value? What's your customer acquisition cost goal? What percentages, what margins are we working with? And then figuring out from there, does SEO even make sense? How long is your sales funnel? Does it take you, are you closing people the day of and you're servicing them within a week? Is it taking you 30 to 60 days to get out there? And do you have the funds to wait for those, 1 to 2 months while, you're getting that service sort of taken care of? So, we'll basically do a discovery process and let them know, hey, SEO makes sense based on your goals. SEO makes sense for you, or it doesn't make sense for you. And we're very transparent with people, because we don't want them wasting their time spending money on SEO or Google Ads if it just is not in alignment with what they're actually trying to accomplish.
But you do charge for that discovery process? You charge a small fee?
Yeah. So at Websauce, we did a similar discovery process that was much more robust, and we were charging $2,500, which included a branding and sort of design discovery. But the discovery we do for SEO and for search engine marketing, um, pricing can vary a little bit depending on how much the client is wanting to try to figure out. But typically, it's going to be anywhere from like $1,000 to $1,500.
Okay, that's cool. So one big takeaway I want to give that I want to talk about for the audience right here is like implementing some sort of discovery process or some sort of front end offer into whatever your process is. No matter what you're selling on the front end, you want to have something that's attractive that people pay for, and that functions as two things. Like number one, it'll actually like qualify some of the people that come on board, so you'll know what type of leads that you're getting. And then number two, it makes it actually easier for people to say yes initially. So it helps attract leads and it also repels the bad leads. So it's like kind of a two-pronged thing. And I think every business, no matter how you're running it or what you're selling, could use that, especially in the service-based world. So that's awesome that you're doing that, man. Can you talk a little bit more about like the type of people that you're going after? So like one of the reasons that you moved away from Websauce, from my understanding, is because there's a lot going on there, a lot of offering, like a lot of like custom sort of packages that you're putting together, that's hard to deliver, and you've transitioned to where you have fewer offerings. But how else have you sort of set yourself up to be like, okay, this is not only the only thing that we offer, but these are the only type of people I want to work with? Like, how have you thought about that?
Yeah. So because of my experience at Websauce, I really ended up working with a lot of local businesses and service-based businesses. So moving forward, that's really become my focus, which is, for example, why we offer the reputation management service, specifically for local SEO clients. So the clients that we focus on, the clients that we can speak the best with, are the ones who have some sort of local presence where we can help them build their reputation in a community, where reviews can be a part of that, where the optimization of their website has to do with a specific area. So we do happen to have clients who are national. We have one client in Canada, an e-commerce client that we brought with us from Websauce. But as far as moving forward into bananas, we've really crafted the offering to target local businesses who have a presence in a specific area.
That's cool. So one of the things that I didn't hear you mention was like a specific industry focus in terms of the type of local businesses that you're working with. And I thought that was really interesting. And I thought that was another thing that I actually learned through the process of building Content Pros and some of the other stuff that we did. Is I think it's more important, and you can let me know whether or not you agree with this, but I think what I found organically is like the most important thing to niche down at first is like the offering. So figure out like what you're actually going to offer, and niche down on that first, and then niche down on like the type of businesses that you want to focus on. But having an industry focus too soon, or maybe even sometimes at all, I find to be a part that maybe people overemphasize. When they think about niching down, it's like, okay, I have to work with like only chiropractors or whatever, and then they pigeonhole themselves into something that's almost not necessary, because there's different ways to niche down, at least from my perspective, where you can have like a specific focus on a niche service and type of customer, but it doesn't have to be as specific as people think. Do you resonate with that at all?
Yeah, I think each industry, there's a lot of nuances that you can learn about and that you can grow accustomed to and really become an expert in an industry. But there's certainly a ton of overlap, right? So, in the pest control industry, for example, when people sign up for a pest control service, they're signing up for a monthly contract. That's either, every quarter or bi-monthly. And it's a similar type of service. I would relate it to something along the lines of home security, for example, because there's also a contract in place there, and they're both trying to get their foot in the door with a small price point and similar. There's certain types of overlap, or window cleaning and carpet cleaning. So I think that niching down so specifically isn't always necessary. It can help, but also because there is so much overlap. Scorpion, for example, I don't know if you've heard of Scorpion
No.
They're an agency. They're a massive, multi-million dollar, in the tens of millions agency, and they do exactly that. So they do SEO and they do different marketing services, but then they have almost like subsidiaries or specialized parts of their company that focus on just law firms, that focus on just, I don't even know all the other services, but I've seen them around, and they seem to have done exactly what you're talking about, where they offer specific services, but because so much overlap, they can do the same thing for different industries. So I'm on the same page with you.
And as well, one of the things that you mentioned as well, and I could kind of tell in terms of like the type of businesses that you were mentioning, like it's not that you never want to have a focus, but like you'll start to recognize patterns of the type of businesses that are using your services. So you'll start to understand the industries that you can serve, which like I'm sure you have like off the top of your head, you already named a few, like the type of businesses that you're actually working with, and you'll start to see patterns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it really comes down to what are the things what the processes that you've put in place, and what's repeatable in other industries. So for us, we've gotten really good at doing, setting up conversion tracking for lead generation businesses. Well, we can do that in a lot of different industries, and it's pretty much the same setup in each one. As one small example.
Yeah, it's cool. Um, Awesome, man. What about like, I mean, what's your team look like right now, and what sort of systems have you put in place to kind of get everything organized? Any pieces of software you're using, or any specific resources that you could share would be dope.
Yeah. So right now our team consists. There's I think 7 of us at this point. We've kind of grown and then had to let people go, and then are now trying to hire a couple people again. Um, as far as softwares that help keep us organized, Asana is a big part of everyone's daily routine to keep track of tasks.
Cool.
Google Sheets and recently implementing Google Scripts to automate processes between sheets and between spreadsheets is something I'm really excited about, because we now that we've got our processes in place and we're starting to do things a lot more efficiently. I'm trying to get the team to ask themselves, what am I doing that I'm having to do the same thing over and over again? And then we have a automation folder in our Google Drive, and an entire document that just says what are the things that we want to automate. Which obviously this costs money, right? So we need to hire. We have a guy who is a specialist in creating scripts, and so I'll come to him and I'll give him a brief and say, what is this going to cost us? And we have to figure out where we want to prioritize, what we want to get done first. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. We just, we've implemented some stuff that it already saves me hours each week. So Asana, I have my team do time tracking. So we use EverHour,
Okay.
and which integrates with Asana, and that enables me to understand how efficiently we're working, and our cost per link acquisition, stuff like that I need to make sure is kept at a certain level, and if not, how do we improve it? As far as other software, those are the main ones that are not specific to our industry. We use Ahrefs, we use Pitchbox for our email outreach.
Pitchbox outreach, is that like a cold email software? Is that like a Persist IQ or a Mailshake type thing?
Yeah, it's really they focus on the SEO industry though, so they've catered their software to SEOs, and to link building into content promotion. Mailshake is a great tool. I've used Mailshake. I really like Reply.io. It's a similar setup to Mailshake, but a little more expensive, more robust system.
Cool. And in terms of the team, like, do you have anyone, like one of the things that you said, I mean, I think it also helps when you have previous business experience. So there's so much stuff that you probably had set up that you knew you had to set up and implement when you started Bananas Marketing Agency, that you took from Websauce, which is a huge advantage, and you can skip a lot of steps. But even still, it sounds like you're still developing new processes that are specific to what you're doing now. So have you been of the mentality that like, okay, cool, I'll get these people in place, and like they know what they're doing, and then we'll like kind of document later, and like people first, documentation later, or what's your philosophy there?
It's shifting. I'm in the middle of sort of shifting that around a little bit. Before it was processes first and fit people in at the cheapest possible rate that I can. And, I've just found over the last few years that you can get lucky and that can work sometimes. And I still think it's important to pay attention to cost, but I find myself being much more excited about getting the right people on the bus and getting them excited about actually working with me to put processes in place. So I have processes in place. We have training documents. We use Loom to screen record our videos and do training that way. I have my right-hand man who oversees a lot of the SEO work that we do in our link building department. But ultimately, if the people we're putting in place are just executors and they're not able to give me feedback about what could be better, and give me ideas about, hey, I'm in the weeds on this, and this seems to be a really inefficient thing that we're doing, because I've stepped away from so much of the business at this point that I don't know where all of the little inefficiencies are. I'm focused on trying to grow the business. I'm focused on making sure we have, enough people in place to keep up with the demand of our workload, and trying to continue building processes. But yeah, so the shift has been, okay, you know what, let's spend a little bit more money to get people in place who are a little bit more qualified, a little bit more excited about being part of a startup and a growing team, and who want to grow with us in our vision, and not just people who are showing up to do the thing and that's it, clock in, clock out. So I find myself being willing to pay more these days for the right kind of person.
That's awesome. There's some people that are watching this that are going to be more in your shoes, that do have some experience, and they're they're willing to pay a little bit more, and they actually have some revenue and they have some bandwidth to be able to figure that out. What would your recommendation to be for someone who like has some traction, but they're still trying to figure out how to go from like freelancer to entrepreneur, but they do have some systems in place. They've kind of got like a recurring business model or whatever. Like, what would your advice be to them if they were like going to take on one person? Who would it be, and how would you recommend going about that process?
Yeah, I feel like that the answer requires a lot of context, because it really depends on the services that you're offering and where your needs are. I would say if you're the technician at this point, what I call it, the person who's executing the things, and you actually want to be a manager and step away, then if you're doing a service, if you're doing one specific thing or maybe a few specific things, then in order to step away, you have to find someone to replace you to do some of those things for you, right? So your first hire is probably going to be someone who can actually do the things for you, or do one of, if you're a web designer, for example, it's probably finding another web designer who you can train or work with to take on some of the web design work so that you don't have to do that. If you're an SEO, it might be finding a virtual assistant who can take on some of the tasks that are very repetitive. So yeah, it really depends. I mean, and going back to, finding the right kind of person, and I totally have been there, where you have to work within the constraints of a very tight budget. I heard a quote recently from Jack Welch, who was the CEO of General Electric in the 90s, one of the greatest CEOs of all time. And he said that hiring the wrong person is going to cost you twice as much as hiring the right person. Meaning that if you hire someone for $100,000 a year and they work for you for a year, that's ultimately going to cost you $200,000 to hire them, fire them, and then replace them. Versus if you had just hired the right person in the first place, then you don't have to deal with the mess of training, of bringing them into the culture and the team, and then finding a replacement. So I would say, ultimately, you probably just want to charge more to bring the right people in, which is very scary for some people. But I find that if you're really offering great value, and become indispensable to your clients, then offering more or asking for more, 10%, 20%, 30%, especially as the years go on, is very reasonable. Prices go up on everything. That's just how it works. So yeah, I would say charge a little more and find a replacement to do things that you're currently doing, whatever that is.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I can appreciate the fact that that answer required some context because there's so many different things that all of us are good at, and that all of us are actually doing in our business. Like myself, for example, when I started out, even when I was on freelance websites winning jobs, I was outsourcing the work immediately. So like I never actually like did any of the work. So it became more important for me to actually outsource like the project management. Like I already skipped a step, so I was already kind of in the manager role, and I wanted to level up from there and be managing the manager. So pay attention to where you are and where you're spending most of your time, and then figure out how to iterate out of that. That should definitely be like your first hire. And then sometimes you don't have to think about it. My first hire, I didn't have to think about because like I knew I couldn't execute on the work that I just sold. So I had to find someone that could do that, which is like an interesting place to be. And looking back was maybe kind of foolish, but it taught me a lot. All right, cool. So man, you've shared some serious value so far. I really appreciate it. I feel like all this stuff is really actionable. One question that I have for you, that I think not a lot of people think about, but yourself having been one business already, having been in the space for a number of years, you're not old yet, but like you're old enough to have some wisdom in life. What is motivating you to do what you do now? Like I heard you talk a little bit about your team, and it sounded like you're excited about kind of like working with people. Like what's motivating you right now in terms of why you're doing this?
Yeah, I love people, man. I love people, and I love building things. Even when because I've worked in companies before, only two or three, but even when I worked for a home security company, which is why I mentioned them earlier. I kind of know that industry, and even when I was a technician. This was like 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. When I was a technician for them, I ended up writing what became the manual for the technicians across the whole company. And we're talking about like a couple hundred technicians throughout the United States. And it was something that I just did for myself at first. And then when I became a manager, I had it for my team. And then my manager found out about it and ended up saying, "You wrote this thing? Like, this is crazy, that everyone should see this." And then I also built a website for the company without them asking, without me even telling them. I built this whole website. I said, "Hey, I built this website. I think that our technicians should compete. They should know how much everyone else is selling." So I've always been a builder. I don't do well when I can't just do the things I want to do. So building motivates me. Just inherently, I'm very driven, but also a love of people. I'm very very empathetic to people's situation. I want to see people do well. I hate. I don't think anyone likes firing, but ultimately, I really want to try to make it work, which can be costly. But I think in the end is best. Is good, as long as you're not hurting your company. And now, to be honest, I live in Bali with my girlfriend, who's absolutely incredible and amazing, and she motivates me a lot because now I'm in this serious relationship, and it's one of those things where she makes me want to be a better person, and also I want to do right by us. There's a mutuality there, that it's not just I'm not just having to take care of myself anymore. Not that I have to take care of her; she takes care of herself, but I want to. I want to do well for her. So that is kind of a newer element, and yeah, just a love of people. I want to see people grow. I want to grow. I'm constantly striving for growth myself. So that's what motivates me at this point.
Awesome. Are you do you ever struggle with the idea? Because like, I mean, I know at least starting out as well, like we're entrepreneurs, we have a million ideas. There's lots of different passions that we have as well. We're all pretty creative people. And for me, sometimes like at least in my last business, I felt a little like boxed in, that I couldn't create, I couldn't do some of the stuff that I wanted to do. And there's a lot of excuses that I made. But I think we're always like uh a lot of times we're thinking about like, oh man, if I could just do this, that would be like way more awesome. But I think what I'm trying to get at is like you can find a lot of fulfillment and joy through something like running a marketing agency, because there's other things that you're passionate about within that aren't necessarily related to like, the end product or the service that you're delivering. It's more about like everything else?
Yeah, I would say, my end goal is definitely not to be running a marketing agency forever. I'm enjoying the process of learning as much as I'm learning about so much, right? As a business owner, I'm constantly learning about, especially in SEO, that's always updating, learning about management, learning about client services and customer service. Um, yeah, I would say it's about being patient. Gary Vee says micro speed, macro patience, and that's so true. So I do see myself running an agency and growing this, and ultimately, selling it at some point over the next. The plan currently is like 5 years. From April 1st, and yeah, it's just about enjoying the process. It's about enjoying the growth. It's about I think also enjoying it, and then at the same time being kind of stoic. I try to have a very stoic philosophy, which for anyone who's not familiar with that, it's about understanding that shit's gonna hit the fan. Oh, can I can I curse on the podcast? Sorry. Stuff's gonna happen, and no matter what comes your way, you have to realize that it's going to happen. It is inevitable that things will go wrong, and so if you choose to get emotional in that moment where things do go wrong, you're setting yourself up for being upset, for being angry, for being sad, for being disappointed. So in realizing that things aren't always going to go right, people are going to screw up, you're going to screw up, clients are going to leave after you've worked really hard for them and you feel like you're very committed to them. It just is part of the game, and so I think that in doing the agency thing, whatever your ultimate goal is, you just have to sort of be ready for the ride and enjoy it and enjoy the lessons that are coming with it, and then figure out whatever that end goal really is for you. How do you take these lessons that you're getting from running an agency and bring them to the next thing?
Yeah, I just think it's a really interesting conversation. I think about passion, I think about alignment a lot, and I think that ultimately we need to feel like we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and that's what it comes down to me. And there's definitely like steps that you can take along your journey, but just surrendering to the process that you're in. I mean, you're running Bananas marketing agency, like there's some reason that you're doing that. So surrendering to that, to be like what's in front of you, to focus on that, like kind of the obstacle is the way. And I feel like at least from my perspective, when you just accept that and give into it, a lot of those lessons come in sort of the way that you were talking about, which is super cool, man.
Yeah, and it's ultimately it's just fun, like it's great if you're the type of person who has chosen to take on the burden of running an agency. You got to have fun with it, or just running a business in general, because if you're not having fun, it's like what's the point, and it's not always going to be fun, but at the same time, you might as well just smile and laugh through it all, because it's just such a wild ride. You're constantly putting out fires, and then when you're not putting out fires, you're excited because you're going through growth, and you might as well enjoy it. You might as well have fun doing it, and you chose this life ultimately, right? So sleep in the bed that you made, and laugh while you're doing it.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. Is like, I think the longer that you're involved, I mean, the less you care in a good way. I used to be so stressed out about clients and waking up to different emails here and there, but at some point, once you're just okay with that being what it is, it's a lot easier to wake up not stressed, because you're like, okay, those fires are going to be there, all these things are going to be there. Like, I can't, if I stress and worry about that, like it's not gonna put them out. Like, so just wake up and do your thing.
And also, I think it's super important too, as a business owner, to really get rooted in the idea of just controlling the controllable. There's just so much that's out of your control, and when you can't do anything about it, there's just no point in being stressed or upset about it, and the best thing that you can do is, in the moment where the uncontrollable happens, is to, as quickly as possible, decide and then take action on the next best thing that you can do. So this happened, these are all the paths that I can take. I'm either going to sit here and be upset about it, or as quickly as I can, I'm going to write down the pros and cons, write, whatever you got to do to figure out, to do your decision-making process, pick a direction and then go, because it's just the quickest way to move forward. Otherwise you're stagnant, you're getting caught up in things. And I have a tattoo that says, it says doubt, but then the UBT is crossed out and it's do.
Nice.
And the idea is that when in doubt, do. Like when in doubt, when things are just kind of going wrong, you need to just figure it out and take action and move in that direction, because action is what is going to get you out of whatever it is that you're currently in, not wallowing in it. So yeah, it's take action, do the thing, just keep going.
That's what's up, man. It's a bit of a mic drop moment, man. That's some serious wisdom. I appreciate that. And sometimes taking that action, I think a lot of what prevents us from doing that sometimes, or causes us to procrastinate, is like we're scared. Like we always know what we need to do. At least I think when you really feel into it, you know what you need to do. But there's just some fear causing you to not take action. And if you could just break through that little bit of resistance and move into it, yeah, things get a whole lot better.
Yeah, it's a gut feeling, right? And I think some people have a hard time trusting their gut. Some people maybe are inherently good at that and learn that at a young age. I'm just sort of getting more and more comfortable with trusting my gut, picking a direction, going in that direction based not on all the things that I'm writing down, although that's important, but really evaluating a situation based on what am I, how do I feel about this person? If something feels off, you kind of sense it, and it's probably best to not go that way. And then sometimes feel like just totally right. And, just hit the gas and go in that direction. But I think trusting your gut is a big part of that quick decision-making process and being able to move forward.
Yeah, definitely, man. And as you get older and you have more experiences, you have a bit more data to work with. So I think it makes sense that, now at this point, where you're at in life, it's easier to trust your gut, because like you kind of know how it feels. You know how it feels to go against the grain, and like some of those feelings that you've ignored that you knew you should have followed in the past. And yeah, it all starts to make a lot more sense, dude. Dude, I know we're relatively short on time for this interview today, but I wanted to cut it here anyway because of the fact that I feel like we've already provided so much value in a short period of time. So the succinctness, I think, is going to be really, really awesome to the people who are watching this. Andrew Peluso, ladies and gentlemen, from Bananas Marketing Agency, it was a real pleasure to have you with us, man. I'm super grateful.
Dude, Tommy, thanks for having me on. I was really excited to catch up with you. It's been a while, and I was bummed that I missed you in Bali, because I know you were out here for a while. We just sort of passed each other, but I know you're living your best life, as they say, and doing your thing. So we'll have to catch up again soon. And yeah, to the audience, thank you guys for listening. If you stuck around this long, and I truly appreciate your time.
Awesome. Where can people find you, man, before we let them go?
Um, Hit me up on LinkedIn. I recently got rid of my social media stuff. I'm just not really on it right now. Have you heard of the book Deep Work?
Yeah.
Yeah, just started reading that. Dropped social media like 6 months ago or so. So I'm not really on Instagram or Facebook these days. But if you just look me up on LinkedIn, Andrew Peluso, Bananas Marketing Agency, you'll find me pretty easily.
Perfect, man. All right. Well, thank you again for making the time. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed this. If you've got questions, comments, suggestions on what to do, or things that we can incorporate next time, drop some comments below, and we'll see you.